Hey again, this is Manny, one of the producers of the channel. I just want to let you know that the episodes are now podcasts too. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Audible, Pandora, and pretty much anywhere you listen. Same cozy stories, just easier to take on the go and with no ads. Just look us up by the same name, Deep Sleep Stories, and search for our logo. I'm also adding the links in the description below. Thank you so much for the support.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. Here, you're invited to leave your cares behind and slip gently into a realm of soft wonder and quiet enchantment. Tonight, you'll be guided into a peaceful glen that shimmers with gentle fairy lights, a place where Midsummer's Eve is on the horizon and magic seems to float in the air. For just a little while, let your breath slow and let your mind drift on gentle currents of relaxation. Take a moment now to notice the softness of the surface beneath you, the weight of the blanket or clothing on your body. Allow your eyes to grow heavy as they settle on the darkness behind your eyelids. With each long, unhurried inhale, feel the tension within your muscles dissolve into the night air. As you breathe out, sense a tiny release of any worries, as though your exhaled breath is carrying them away on a soft breeze. Focus on the gentle rise and fall of your chest. If you like, you can let your lips part just a little, letting the air flow smoothly. Imagine the space around you becoming cozier, as if invisible arms of warmth are wrapping you in a comforting embrace. There is no need to rush. There is nothing else that demands your attention in this moment. You are here in a safe space, free to drift wherever your imagination takes you. Picture, if you will, a moonlit forest on the cusp of summer's full splendor. The leaves overhead rustle in a light wind, creating a soothing hush that accompanies the rhythmic lull of your breath. A gentle glow halos around the silhouette of tall trees, hinting at something magical beyond. You can almost feel a welcoming hush in the air, an invitation to wander through a realm untouched by worry. Take another slow, relaxing inhale and notice how calm your body feels. Another exhale, and you sink just a bit deeper into this restful state. Let your eyelids be soft and relaxed. As you continue to breathe, you might even feel a subtle tingle of anticipation, the excitement that arises when a beautiful story is about to begin. Yet you remain serene, your body still and your mind untroubled, ready to float through a gentle tale meant to accompany you into the depths of restful slumber. Before we begin our journey, allow your breath to carry you one step further into tranquility. With each inhale, imagine drawing in peace, lightness, and the fragrance of wildflowers under the moon. With every exhale, release tension, thoughts of the day, or any anxieties that may linger. Little by little, you settle into a calmer rhythm, a gentle lull that sets the stage for the story to unfold. In just a moment, the scene will open upon a peaceful clearing, softly lit by flickering lights of otherworldly origin. You will witness how, on a midsummer's eve, an ancient glen becomes alive with the hush of fairy wings and the glow of hidden magic. Let yourself be carried into this enchanted realm without hurry, and trust that you need do nothing but listen, breathe, and rest. Feel free to let your thoughts come and go like distant clouds. You need not hold on to them. Simply notice them drifting across your mind's sky, and then gently float back to the soft notes of this quiet tale. As you continue to relax, your breathing deepens, your heartbeat slows, and your muscles unwind. Now, let us move, gently and unhurried, into the realm of dreams. In the heart of a sprawling woodland, at the edge of a small village named Laurelwick, there lay a quiet glen steeped in old tales and whispered legends. Each midsummer, when the moon grew full and the night air turned warm as a gentle embrace, a certain magic was said to stir among the tall grasses and velvety moss. Very few villagers ever walked into that glen after sundown, preferring instead to sleep in their warm cottages. Yet stories persisted of curious lights that glowed between the tree trunks when the hour grew late, flickering like tiny lanterns suspended in the dusk. Some claimed they were only fireflies in a joyous dance, while others spoke in hushed tones about fairy lights and ancient woodland spirits. Whatever the truth, the glen held a promise of peaceful wonder. Aurelia, a young villager whose heart was ever open to the subtle mysteries of nature, had grown up hearing the tales. In her earliest childhood memories, she recalled sitting beside the fireplace in her grandmother's snug cottage, while the elder's voice told stories of fairy lights dancing on moonbeams. Now, at the cusp of Midsummer's Eve, Aurelia felt a soft pull toward that hidden place. The gentle warmth of the season pressed at her heart, filling her with a quiet longing to see for herself the enchantment rumored to swirl amidst the tall, ancient oaks. On the eve before the solstice celebrations, Aurelia carefully folded a light shawl over her arm and stepped beyond the threshold of her home. The night sky stretched above in an endless tapestry of deep velvet, studded with stars that twinkled like the eyes of benevolent watchers. The path into the forest was cool underfoot, a natural trail shaped by years of woodland creatures passing quietly by. A hush seemed to wrap the world in soft silver, as if the land itself anticipated the change of the season. She moved with gentle caution, pushing aside slender branches and stepping over roots that curved up from the earth. The forest canopy whispered overhead, leaves brushing together in a lullaby that guided her deeper into the heart of the woodland. The sweet scent of honeysuckle drifted around her. Far off, the chirp of crickets provided a gentle chorus, as if welcoming her approach. In the glen, the grass was tall, brushing at Aurelia's ankles in tender strokes. The moon was high now, casting a dreamy glow across the clearing. She paused at the edge, letting her gaze sweep over the open space. At first, the clearing seemed only moonlit, marked by the swaying silhouettes of flowers too numerous to name. But as Aurelia stood still, breathing softly, she noticed faint glimmers hovering just above the meadow. Those glimmers moved with a subtle rhythm, as though carried by the faint breeze that stirred the petals and leaves. Light as a feather's touch, they floated upward and drifted down again. leaving gentle trails of luminescence in their wake. Aurelia's heart fluttered with awe. There, in that peaceful clearing, she witnessed something more enchanting than she had ever imagined. Orbs of soft light that shimmered like distant stars, each one dancing silently among the blossoms. She took a cautious step forward, mindful not to disturb the hush that lay upon the glen. The orbs of light fluttered closer, revealing themselves as small clusters of glowing wings. They resembled miniature butterflies or moths, yet they possessed a captivating glow that radiated a soothing luminescence. Aurelia's breath caught in her throat. Fairy lights, she thought, remembering the story from her grandmother's lips. Whether actual fairies or enchanted insects, they carried with them an air of delicate mystery, drifting in slow spirals through the night air. Quietly, Aurelia knelt in the soft grass. This close, she could see each swirl of pale gold shimmering upon translucent wings. The creatures flitted in gentle arcs, as though painting the dark with swirls of warm light. Their glow washed over the moss and blossoming wildflowers, illuminating everything in hushed brilliance. A sense of serenity fell over Aurelia, the kind that made her eyelids feel heavy with contentment. She felt as if the forest itself was sharing a tender secret, inviting her to become a part of its gentle evening ritual. As she lingered, the night around her grew deeper. The distant hoot of an owl echoed through the trees, but the fairy lights remained, floating serenely. Aurelia felt no fear, only a soft reverence. It was said that Midsummer's Eve carried a special enchantment, when the veil between the everyday world and the realm of magic wore thin. To witness these lights was to glimpse that hidden thread weaving the natural and the mystical together. She wanted to savor this moment forever. But even as she watched, drowsiness tugged at her. Slowly, her eyes grew heavy. She laid the shawl over a patch of moss and settled there, letting her gaze wander among the drifting orbs. One particularly bright glow ventured close enough for her to see its delicate silhouette, a tiny figure with fragile wings. For an instant, it seemed to acknowledge her presence, tilting its tiny face as if curious. Then, with a graceful flutter, it vanished into a swirl of shimmering dust, joining the rest in that quiet dance. Aurelia's eyelids lowered fully now. The forest breathed around her, and she sank into a half-dream, lulled by the enchantment of that magical place. Meanwhile, deeper in the grove, other quiet creatures stirred. A dozing fawn raised its head, ears pricked, as if listening to the faint hum of magic. An old fox, grey around the muzzle, paused mid-step to watch the glimmering arcs of light swirl among the roots of an ancient oak. Nothing in that glen was alarmed or unsettled. The sense of peace prevailed, as though the presence of the lights only heightened the forest's natural harmony. Midnight passed in slow majesty, the moon traveling its stately course across the sky. The entire woodland seemed draped in a hushed ceremony, aware that Midsummer's Eve drew ever nearer. When morning's first traces of pale light began to weave through the treetops, the fairy lights flickered one final time before disappearing into the quiet corners of the forest. A hush fell over the clearing again, the glow replaced by the golden warmth of dawn. Aurelia stirred awake, blinking at the rays of sunlight dancing on her cheeks. Though the brilliant orbs had vanished, the memory of their presence lingered in the air, like the echo of a sweet melody. Rising from her mossy bed, Aurelia felt a calm certainty that she had not merely dreamed them. In her mind, she still saw their graceful arcs, felt the gentle hush they cast over the meadow. She made her way back to the village, heart brimming with the quiet joy of what she had witnessed. All that day, the village buzzed with preparations for the coming festival. Stalls were set up along the cobbled paths, and garlands of wildflowers adorned every fence. Children skipped about, laughing, while the elders gathered in small circles to chat about old times and the special hush that often accompanied Midsummer. Though Aurelia aided in the festivities, tying ribbons, hanging wreaths, setting out sweet pastries, her mind remained in the Glen. She couldn't help but think of the flickering lights, how they appeared at midnight and departed with the dawn's approach. Night fell once more, bringing with it the promise that the next sunset would herald Midsummer's Eve. Aurelia felt drawn to the Glen again, but she reminded herself that she would be busy at the festival. So she watched the sky from her window, noticing the stars that blinked awake. Even from a distance, she sensed the forest brimming with quiet expectancy, as though something wondrous was preparing to unfold. At last, Midsummer's Eve arrived. The villagers lit lanterns that hung from every pole and branch, their warm glow reflecting in the eyes of those who gathered to sing and dance around the village square. Musicians played gentle reels on fiddles and flutes. Aromas of fresh-baked bread, roasted vegetables, and sweet custards drifted in the evening air. Occasionally, bursts of laughter would echo as children wove flower crowns or chased one another between the lantern-lit stalls. Yet Aurelia's thoughts continually returned to the Glen. She found herself gazing beyond the circle of dancers, as if waiting for some silent signal. She felt a tender pull at her core, urging her to slip away from the festivities just for a moment. After exchanging a soft smile with a friend, Aurelia quietly stepped off the square, letting the music fade behind her as she walked toward the forest path. This time, the night was sweet with the fragrance of summer roses and damp earth. Fireflies danced along the edges of the path, as though to guide her steps. When she reached the familiar line of oak and birch trees, she paused for a moment, letting the hush fold around her like a whisper of silk. Then, with a calm heart, she wandered deeper into the forest, following a meandering route that led to the Glen. The space opened before her like a welcoming, moonlit stage. This time, however, the glow was more abundant, as if countless tiny stars had descended from the sky to make their home among the blossoms. The fairy lights drifted in long, sweeping arcs, illuminating the ancient trees with a gentle radiance. Aurelia caught her breath as she realized the entire clearing was alive with these luminous beings. Each orb pulsed softly, like a heartbeat, and their combined light created a hushed aura of wonder. A fine mist clung to the ground, swirling around Aurelia's ankles. She knelt again, letting her fingertips graze the dewy grass. Within that mist, small shapes seemed to dance, silhouettes that vanished if she looked too closely, but reappeared at the corner of her vision. Now she could sense a quiet presence all around. The forest exhaled, and in that breath she perceived an ancient harmony, a deep contentment that had persisted for generations, waiting for nights like this to blossom into full enchantment. Seated beneath the silver glow of the moon, Aurelia let her thoughts drift into gentle musings. She pictured the forest as a living tapestry, woven from roots and leaves, and the hush of creatures passing through. She felt that somehow the forest recognized her as a respectful visitor, one who came not to disturb, but to marvel. And in recognition, it offered her a glimpse of the magic that flickered beneath the surface of ordinary life. Time slipped away in the Glen, measured not in minutes or hours, but in the slow dance of lights that rose and fell, rose and fell. Sometimes the orbs gathered in small clusters, swirling in delicate spirals before dispersing again into the open space. Other times, single lights floated close to Aurelia, as if studying her curious expression. With each gentle approach, Aurelia's heart felt lighter, as though these luminous beings brushed away any lingering worry, leaving only calm wonder in its place. At the stroke of midnight, the clearing grew even brighter. The fairy lights converged in an elegant display, forming a slow swirl that drifted upward toward the canopy. In that moment, anyone present might have sworn they heard a faint tinkling sound, like a chorus of tiny bells carried on a breeze. The swirl hung suspended in the night air, then gracefully descended, scattering soft droplets of glow that shimmered like moonlit dew. Aurelia watched with wide eyes, thinking that if ever there was a living dream, she was now in the midst of it. When the dance of the lights settled into its familiar pattern once again, Aurelia felt the urge to stand and join them, to move in silent imitation. She rose, letting her hands drift outward in gentle arcs. Step by step, she circled the clearing, careful not to tread on any flowers. She allowed herself to be guided by the silent rhythm of the lights. Each slow turn and soft sway was a gesture of gratitude, an unspoken exchange between herself and the spirit of the Glen. Eventually, she felt a subtle shift in the air, a sign that the night was leaning toward dawn. One by one, the clusters of lights drifted toward the darker corners of the forest. Some glided among the thick vines, while others soared up into the high branches. A hush followed, the clearing returning to a more shadowed glow. Aurelia was left standing near the center, her shawl half forgotten at the foot of an old willow. She looked around, her senses filled with a quiet awe. Though the lights were receding, her heart was warm, infused with the serenity of the night's marvel. Returning to the village, Aurelia found that the festival fires were still burning low. A few villagers dozed on benches, lulled by the gentle music that played on. Others simply watched the horizon for the first hints of dawn, their faces serene. Aurelia slipped into her cottage, letting the lingering hush of the Glen accompany her. She fell asleep almost immediately, though her dreams sparkled with glimmers of moonlit wings and drifting orbs of golden light. Days passed, and news of the festival reached travelers from nearby towns. Word spread that Laurelwick's Midsummer celebrations had been especially magical this year, though no one quite knew why. Some claimed it was due to the kind nature of the villagers. Others believed it was because the forests surrounding the village were old and full of hidden energies. Whatever the reason, the sense of that soft, gentle magic clung to the air for weeks after. Even in the bright daylight, people remarked on how peaceful they felt walking along the forest paths. Children laughed more freely, and the older folk reminisced about the simpler joys of life. Aurelia carried the memory of the Glen like a secret, precious treasure. she would rise early to greet the morning sun, her heart feeling light and open. Sometimes she would bring a small offering of wildflowers or a loaf of sweet bread to the edge of the woods, placing them beneath a willow tree as a silent gesture of thanks. In return, she felt the forest respond with a renewed hush, an acceptance, as though each gesture deepened the invisible bond between her and that enchanted haven. Weeks turned to months, and the warm glow of summer began to transition into the gentler hush of early autumn. While the nights grew a touch cooler and leaves prepared to turn golden, Aurelia still felt that spark of midsummer magic within her. She would often wander the outskirts of the Glen on starry evenings, never venturing too far, but just enough to feel the soft hum in the air, a reminder that though the fairy lights might not appear as brilliantly outside of midsummer's threshold, their presence lingered in the hidden corners of the woods. Life in Laurelwick continued at a steady, comforting pace, the villagers tending their gardens, raising new cottages, and sharing stories by candlelight once the sun dipped low. Aurelia's neighbors noticed how peaceful she seemed these days, how her gaze sometimes traveled beyond the horizon, as though recalling something extraordinary. Whenever they asked her about it, she would only smile in that secretive way, offering no explanation other than a gentle shake of her head. When next summer drew near, rumors circulated that the Glen might come to life once again with those mysterious orbs. A few brave souls considered exploring the forest at night, but most preferred to let the legends remain unspoiled by too many curious eyes. Aurelia, for her part, decided that the Glen was best visited in stillness, approached with open-hearted respect. She told herself she might return one evening, but only if her intuition guided her there, only if she felt that same gentle pull as she had on the previous Midsummer's Eve. In the meantime, she found herself drawn to quiet tasks around the village, gathering herbs for remedies, helping the elderly with their chores, or simply taking a moment to watch the sun set behind the hills. Each small act became a gentle meditation, an opportunity to connect with the serene undercurrent of life she had felt so strongly in the Glen. In this way, the enchantment of that magical clearing stayed alive inside her, a glowing ember that warmed her spirit from within. And so, the seasons continued their graceful dance. Winter's snow briefly blanketed the forest, giving way to spring's tender blooms, which in turn transformed into the lush fullness of another summer. Each year, as midsummer approached, the villagers of Laurelwick prepared lanterns and baked sweet treats, painting wooden signs and gathering bright garlands to decorate the square. And each year, a few more rumors of those mysterious fairy lights found their way into hushed conversations around the hearth. Aurelia, ever attuned to the gentle rhythms of the land, would venture out along the forest path as dusk settled, pausing now and then to listen. Sometimes she heard the faint rustle of leaves, or caught the fleeting sparkle of a firefly gliding by. Other times, she sensed something deeper, a presence that shimmered just beneath the surface of the everyday world. It comforted her, made her feel that there was more kindness and subtle magic in life than many realized. No matter how many times she visited, Aurelia approached the Glen with a profound sense of gratitude. She thought back often to her grandmother's stories, the tales of fairy wings dancing on moonbeams, told in that soft voice by a crackling fireplace. Now she understood that such tales weren't merely bedtime fantasies. They were gentle reminders that the world held places of wonder, accessible to those who listened with open hearts. Each year on Midsummer's Eve, Aurelia would quietly slip away from the lively festivities. She would walk that meandering path under the moon's silver glow, past the hush of tall pines and the quiet watchfulness of ancient oaks. At the glen's edge, she would stop and breathe in the night air, letting the hush envelop her. Sometimes, the flicker of fairy lights would greet her, drifting high among the branches. On other nights, only silence prevailed, and yet it was never empty or lonely. The forest was alive with hidden songs, even when the lights remained elusive. Her visits became a personal pilgrimage, a quiet communion with the spirit of nature and whatever unseen wonders lived there. Word by word, the legends grew. A traveling bard might hear of them in a nearby tavern and compose a gentle ballad about the fairy lights of Laurelwick. A passing merchant could mention them to the next town over, who would pass the rumor on to someone else, and so on. Over time, this little village acquired a subtle reputation for being a peaceful haven, touched by soft magic during summer's warmest nights. Occasionally, a wandering soul might be drawn to Laurelwick, seeking to witness such wonders for themselves. Most left with only stories of kind villagers and lovely forest walks, content in the gentle calm that enveloped them. Still, Aurelia and the forest kept their secrets. The glen remained a sanctuary for the intangible. Whenever she laid eyes upon the swirling lights, Aurelia felt that sense of comfort wash over her anew, reminding her how easy it was to slip into a place of trust and awe when one's heart was open. The complexities of daily life melted away in that glow, replaced by the lull of moonlit quiet, the hush of wind in the branches, and the gentle presence of shimmering magic that needed no explanation. As the seasons turned and the years passed, the memory of Midsummer's Eve lights became a lullaby in Aurelia's heart. Each evening, she found solace in recalling the slow dance of gentle luminescence. With time, she realized that experiencing magic need not be a rare event. It could be found in the rustle of leaves on a tranquil walk, in the starlight that sparkled on a still pond, or in the warmth of a kind smile exchanged with a neighbor. The forest had whispered that truth to her, and she carried it with her always. Softly, the hush of twilight settled over Laurelwick once again. Shadows lengthened across the meadows, and the distant hills glowed in the last light of the sinking sun. In the cottages, lamps flickered, and a contented stillness filled the air. The memory of fairy lights lingered like a gentle perfume, encouraging everyone to slow down, to rest, and to trust in the simplicity of peace. In that deepening quiet, the forest exhaled a final time, bidding good night to the village. Leaves fluttered softly. A gentle breeze passed through the glen, stirring the tall grasses with a whisper. The memory of Aurelia's footsteps among the fairy lights remained, woven into the tapestry of that timeless place, where magic brushed close to the waking world. In the hush, one might almost hear a subtle humming, a promise that when Midsummer's Eve returned, those lights might once again shimmer in the moonlit mist. Now, let your own awareness drift, carried upon the soothing current of this tale. Let your breathing soften, each inhale a little slower, each exhale a gentle release. Imagine the glen in all its moonlit beauty, glowing with hidden wonders, and sense the easing of your mind and body. Feel the weight of the day melt away, your muscles loosening, your thoughts becoming drowsy and relaxed. There is nothing else to do now but rest. The story's enchantment has woven a warm blanket of calm around you. Breathe in one last time, drawing in that sweet sense of peace. Breathe out and let every last bit of tension flow away. Let your eyelids grow heavier. Let your body sink deeper into comfort. Let the soft hush of the forest guide you toward a sweet and gentle sleep. Good night, dear traveler. May you rest well and dream of fairy lights dancing under a summer moon. May your heart remain open to the quiet magic that lives in the spaces between breaths. Sleep well in the warmth of whispered wonder. And when you awake, may you carry a touch of that peace with you wherever you go.